Commander Vex 4 stepped into the ancient archive chamber, his four eyes adjusting to the dim blue light that had illuminated these records for over 2 millennia. The crystalline data cores hummed softly as he accessed files that most council members considered worthless fairy tales. His clawed fingers traced over the holographic displays, showing fragmented reports from the galaxy's earliest exploration missions. Species designation human, he read aloud to the empty chamber. Status extinct for H147 standard cycles. Notable characteristics: bipedal, mammalian, average lifespan of 80 cycles. Remarkable claims include survival in environments lethal to most species, construction of weapons from salvaged materials, and refusal to surrender even when facing certain death. Vex 4 scrolled through witness accounts that seemed too incredible to believe. One report described humans jury-rigging plasma cannons from mining equipment during a pirate raid. Another told of human colonists who had somehow survived on a barren moon for decades by eating processed atmospheric bacteria and drinking recycled water. The most outrageous claims spoke of humans who continued fighting, even after suffering wounds that would kill any civilized species within minutes. The archive door hissed open behind him. High Admiral Korath entered, his massive frame filling the doorway. The 3-meter-tall Zephyrian looked amused as he watched Vex 4 studying the old records. "Still reading bedtime stories, Commander?" Korath's voice boomed through the chamber. "My fleet launches in 6 hours. We'll have those outer rim systems claimed before the weekends." Vex 4 gestured at the floating data displays. "These reports are consistent across multiple sources. 17 different species encountered humans over a 3-century period. They all described the same impossible behaviors." Korath laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 17 extinct species, you mean? Whatever killed the humans probably got them too. The outer rim has been silent for 800 years. No transmissions, no ship movements, nothing but empty. Space and dead rocks. But what if they're wrong? Vex 4 persisted. What if humans didn't go extinct? What if they just disappeared? The High Admiral's amusement faded. His 4 arms crossed over his armored chest as he leaned forward. "Listen carefully, Commander. I have 15,000 warships equipped with plasma cannons that can crack planets. My soldiers carry weapons that can vaporize entire city blocks. If there are any humans left out there, they'll surrender the moment they see our fleet." Vex 4 nodded reluctantly, but his eyes remained fixed on one particular report. It described a human vessel that had somehow outmaneuvered 6 Kilrathi destroyers, using nothing but clever positioning and creative use of asteroid fields. The human ship had been outnumbered and outgunned, yet somehow all 6 Kilrathi vessels had been destroyed while the human craft escaped without a scratch. "Impossible," he whispered, but doubt gnawed at his mind. 3,000 light-years away, in the depths of the Terran exclusion zone, Captain Jin Park stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance. The ship looked like a patchwork of salvaged parts, held together by human ingenuity and desperate determination. Hull plates from a dozen different alien vessels had been welded together to create armor that somehow managed to be both ugly and effective. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring sensor arrays that stretched across 17 star systems. These sensors had been built from salvaged alien technology, reverse-engineered over 3 centuries of careful study. Every crashed alien scout ship, every abandoned mining station, every piece of discarded equipment had been collected and analyzed. "Lieutenant." Yun Choi looked up from her sensor station, her face pale. "Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movement in Sector 7. Configuration matches Galactic Council battle formations." Jin's weathered hands gripped the command chair. He had served in the hidden fleet for 30 years, waiting for this moment. His grandfather had helped build these ships in secret. His father had trained the crews who would one day have to use them. Now that day had finally arrived. "How many ships?" Jin asked. 15,000 confirmed, Yun reported. "They're moving in standard invasion formation toward the Kepler systems." Jin closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of the hidden human colonies scattered throughout the outer rim. Millions of people who had lived their entire lives in secret, building underground cities and asteroid bases, always knowing this confrontation would eventually come. The tactical display showed the approaching alien fleet as red dots moving inexorably toward human space. Each dot represented a warship capable of destroying entire planets. But Jin wasn't afraid. Humanity had spent 8 centuries preparing for this moment. "Send a priority message to Admiral Tay," Jin ordered his communications officer. "Tell him the myths are about to become reality." As the message raced through hidden relay stations toward the fleet commander, Jin watched the alien ships grow closer on his screens. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to give up, no matter how impossible the odds appeared. The legends were about to come alive. Admiral Tae Kim stood in the command center of the massive asteroid base, watching the holographic display that showed thousands of red dots moving toward human space. The base had been carved from a dead planetoid over 2 centuries ago, its surface disguised to look like ordinary space rock. Inside, it buzzed with activity as hundreds of technicians prepared for humanity's first open battle in 800 years. 12,000 ships, Lieutenant Yun Choi repeated, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. Their formation suggests they're expecting to face primitive colonists with mining equipment. Tay nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The alien fleet moved in perfect formation, each ship positioned exactly where their military doctrine demanded. He had studied those formations for 30 years, memorizing every weakness and vulnerability. The Galactic Council fought like they always fought, with overwhelming force and absolute confidence in their technological superiority. "They have no idea what they're walking into," Tay said quietly. Behind him, the command center's massive view screen showed the hidden human fleet. Ships emerged from asteroid fields where they had waited for decades, their hulls scarred and patched, but their weapons fully charged. The vessels looked like they had been built in a scrapyard, which wasn't far from the truth. Every piece of metal, every weapon system, every engine component had been salvaged from alien wrecks and rebuilt with human ingenuity. Captain Huan Li's voice crackled through the communication system from his ship, the resilient Dawn. "Admiral, my engineering teams report all systems are green. The plasma cannons we pulled from that Kilrathi wreck are ready to fire." "Good," Tay replied. "What about the stealth generators?" "Working perfectly, sir. We reverse-engineered them. From those Vorthan scout ships that crashed in the Centauri system 50 years ago. The aliens won't see us coming until we're right on top of them." Tay allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had become masters of salvage and reverse engineering. When the galaxy thought they were extinct, humans had been quietly collecting every piece of alien technology they could find. Crashed ships, abandoned mining stations, even broken weapons left behind after battles. Everything had been studied, analyzed, and improved upon. The view screen shifted to show Captain Ariseo's ship, the Determination. Unlike the other vessels, her ship looked almost elegant, its hull covered in what appeared to be decorative patterns. Only a trained eye would recognize that those patterns were actually adaptive camouflage stolen from Zephyrian spy ships. "Admiral," Ari's voice came through clearly, "my infiltration teams are ready. We've been practicing boarding actions using Galactic Council ship layouts for 20 years. Their security systems won't stop us." "Excellent," Tay said. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We just need to show them that humans are very much alive and very dangerous." Lieutenant Ji Han looked up from her station, excitement visible in her eyes. "Sir, the alien fleet just entered the outer sensor grid. They're maintaining standard approach velocity. No sign they suspect anything." Tay walked to the tactical display and studied the approaching formation. 15,000 alien ships moving in perfect order, each one capable of destroying a planet. Any rational species would surrender immediately when faced with such overwhelming force, but humans had stopped being rational the day they decided to survive in a galaxy that wanted them dead. "Open a channel to all ships," Tay ordered. "It's time to wake up the galaxy." The communication system activated, connecting him to every hidden human vessel scattered across the star system. Captains who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment listened as their admiral spoke. "Friends, today we end 8 centuries of hiding. Today we show the galaxy that reports of humanity's death were greatly exaggerated. Our ancestors survived the Great Exodus. They built new homes in the darkness between stars. They taught us to turn every scrap of metal into a weapon, every broken machine into a tool of survival. Tay paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Men and women who had been born in asteroid bases and hidden colonies, raised on stories of Earth and trained to fight for humanity's future. The aliens coming toward us think we're extinct. They think our worlds are empty and defenseless. They're about to learn that humans don't go quietly into the night. We adapt, we survive, and we fight back. Today, we remind the galaxy why humans became legends. He turned to his communications officer. Signal the fleet, begin Operation Lazarus. Across the star system, human ships began moving from their hiding places. Stealth generators activated, making the vessels nearly invisible to alien sensors. Weapons that had been cobbled together from salvaged parts, powered up with deadly efficiency. Engines built from the wreckage of a dozen different alien designs pushed the ships forward with surprising speed. The alien fleet continued its approach, completely unaware that they were flying into a trap 800 years in the making. Soon they would discover that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to stay dead. The first alien sensors detected movement at 1432 Galactic Standard Time. What appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with ships that seemed to materialize from nothing. Captain Narration watched from the bridge of the Determination as her stealth generators powered down, revealing her vessel to the massive Galactic Council fleet ahead. "Beautiful sight, isn't it?" she said to her crew, gesturing at the alien formation. 15,000 warships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, their hulls gleaming with polished metal and energy shields. They look so confident. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Day One, studied the alien fleet through his targeting systems. "Their shields are at minimum power, Captain. Weapon systems show standby configuration. They really don't expect any resistance." Ari nodded. The aliens had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to face an enemy who refused to be intimidated. She activated her communication system, knowing that her next words would be heard across the entire Galactic Council fleet. "This is Captain Narration of the human vessel Determination. Unknown alien vessels, you have entered human space without permission. This is your only warning. Turn back now or face the consequences." The response came within seconds. "Commander," Vex 4's voice crackled through the speakers, filled with disbelief and arrogance. "Impossible, humans are extinct. I demand you identify yourselves immediately and prepare to surrender." Ari smiled at her crew. "Did everyone hear that? They demand we surrender." The bridge erupted in quiet laughter. "Shall we show them what 800 years of human ingenuity looks like?" She opened the channel again. "Commander, we tried to warn you. What happens next is your choice." The alien fleet began moving into attack formation, but they moved slowly, following standard protocols designed for overwhelming primitive opponents. They had no idea they were facing an enemy that had studied their every tactic for decades. "All ships, execute Lazarus Protocol," Ari commanded. What happened next would be talked about in galactic military academies for centuries. The human fleet, outnumbered 50 to 1, suddenly scattered in 17 different directions simultaneously. Each ship moved with precision that seemed impossible for vessels of their apparent construction. The aliens tried to track them, but human ships kept disappearing from sensors, only to reappear somewhere completely unexpected. Captain Jin Park's ship, the Defiance, dove straight into the asteroid field that the aliens had been using for cover. His helmsman, Ensign Tae-yu, piloted the ship through gaps between asteroids that were barely wider than the vessel itself. Alien pursuit ships tried to follow, but crashed into the floating rocks, their pilots unable to match human reflexes and spatial awareness. "Their weapons can't lock onto us," Jin reported over the fleet communication system. "These stealth modifications are working perfectly." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Huan Li prepared his boarding team aboard the assault ship Retribution. His soldiers, war armor pieced together from salvaged alien equipment, but every piece had been modified and improved. Their weapons were a mix of human engineering and captured alien technology that somehow worked better than either alone. "Remember," Juan told his team as they approached their target, a massive Galactic Council battlecruiser. "They think we're myths. They've never seen humans fight. Use that fear." The Retribution attached itself to the alien ship's hull using magnetic grapples reverse-engineered from Kilrathi boarding craft. Juan's team cut through the hull with plasma torches that had been built from mining equipment and powered by alien energy cells. The enemy crew inside had no idea what was coming. The first alien soldiers to encounter the human boarding party froze in terror. These creatures looked exactly like the beings from their oldest legends, bipedal mammals with forward-facing eyes and an aggressive stance that radiated danger. But seeing them in person was completely different from reading ancient reports. Juan moved through the alien ship like a force of nature. When his plasma rifle ran out of ammunition, he grabbed a broken piece of hull plating and used it as a shield while drawing a backup weapon made from salvaged parts. When that weapon failed, he picked up an alien tool from a nearby maintenance kit and somehow turned it into a devastating close combat weapon. "How are they doing this?" screamed one alien soldier into his communicator as he watched humans adapt and improvise with terrifying efficiency. "They're using our own equipment against us." The human boarding teams moved through the alien ships with practiced coordination. Every door they encountered, every security system they faced, every weapon they captured, all of it had been studied and prepared for during centuries of careful planning. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that somehow knew their ships better than they did. Commander Vex 4 watched in horror from his flagship's bridge as human vessels danced between his massive battleships, striking with surgical precision before vanishing again. His weapons officers couldn't maintain target locks. His shield operators couldn't block weapons that seemed to phase through their defenses. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with obvious panic, "they're boarding the Dominance and the Eternal Glory. Our security teams aren't responding." Vex 4's four eyes widened as he realized the truth. The ancient reports hadn't been exaggerated. If anything, they had understated human capabilities. These weren't primitive colonists. They were the galaxy's most dangerous predators, and they had been waiting in the darkness for 800 years. "The myths," he whispered as alarms began sounding throughout his flagship. "They're all true. The emergency communication reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. Quantum relay networks that normally carried routine trade messages and diplomatic correspondence now buzzed with urgent reports that shook the foundations of galactic civilization. On Zephyr Prime, the Galactic Council's capital world, government officials stared at their screens in disbelief, confirmed reports. "From the Outer Rim," announced Council Speaker Threx Prime to the emergency assembly, "the human fleet has not only engaged our forces, but achieved tactical victory. Commander Vex 4's battle group has been neutralized." The massive council chamber, which could hold representatives from 800 different species, fell into stunned silence. For nearly a millennium, humans had existed only in archived legends and children's stories. Now those legends were destroying the most powerful military force in known space. President Kulak of the Vorthan Empire slammed his six-fingered fist on his podium. "This is impossible. My intelligence reports confirmed human extinction 8 centuries ago. How can a dead species suddenly appear with advanced warships?" "Perhaps they were never dead," suggested Ambassador Yiln from the Crystalline Collective, her voice creating harmonic frequencies that translated through the chamber's universal speakers. "Perhaps they simply learned to hide." Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, Captain Jihan stood on the bridge of the human vessel undaunted, as her fleet emerged from behind a gas giant's rings. Unlike the first wave that had engaged the Galactic Council forces, her ships had been positioned throughout the galaxy for decades, waiting for this moment. "Captain," reported her sensor officer, Ensign Huan Do, "we're detecting massive fleet movements in 17 different sectors. The aliens are trying to reposition their forces." Jihan smiled as she watched alien warships scrambling to respond to threats that seemed to appear everywhere at once. "They still don't understand what they're dealing with. Open a channel to Admiral Tay." The holographic projection of Admiral Tay Kim appeared before her, his image transmitted across light years through hidden relay stations that humans had built in asteroid fields and abandoned space stations. "Report, Captain," Tay said. "Phase 2 is proceeding perfectly, sir. We've revealed our presence in 43 star systems simultaneously. The aliens are completely confused about our actual numbers and positions. Excellent. Remember, we're not trying to conquer them. We just need to prove that humanity is very much alive and capable of defending itself. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out in system after system. Human ships that had been hiding for generations suddenly revealed themselves, emerging from locations that alien strategists had dismissed as uninhabitable. Captain Yun Yu's fleet appeared from within a nebula that the aliens considered toxic to all known life forms. Captain Day Moon's vessels rose from beneath the ice sheets of frozen moons that had been marked as completely dead on every galactic chart. On the Galactic Council's main military station, High Admiral Koreth faced a tactical situation unlike anything in his 4-decade career. His holographic battle display showed red dots appearing throughout known space, each one representing a human fleet that had somehow avoided detection for centuries. "How many ships are we facing?" he demanded from his intelligence officer. "Unknown. Sir, they appear to have bases in the Corona Nebula, the Void Reaches, even the radioactive zones around pulsar stars, locations we considered completely uninhabitable." Koreth's massive frame trembled with rage and confusion. Those environments would kill any known species within hours. How are humans surviving there? His aide, a nervous Kilrathi named Kex-7, had been studying the fragmentary reports from surviving ships. "Sir, the ancient records were accurate. Humans don't just survive in hostile environments, they actually thrive in them. They turn deadly radiation into power sources, convert toxic gases into breathable atmosphere, and build weapons from materials that would poison other species." The reports from the battle zone painted an even more disturbing picture. Human boarding. Parties had somehow learned to operate every type of alien technology they encountered. Captured Galactic Council weapon systems worked better in human hands than they ever had for their original builders. Alien shield generators that humans had salvaged from wrecks somehow provided stronger protection than factory-new equipment. "They're adapting our technology faster than we can deploy it," reported Fleet Commander Zil-8 from his damaged flagship. "Every weapon they capture, every system they study, within hours they've improved it and turned it against us." Captain Ariseo's voice crackled through the alien communication networks, intercepted by every listening post in the galaxy. "Attention Galactic Council forces. You are facing the human species, survivors of your attempts at extermination 8. 100 years ago. We have watched you, learned from you, and prepared for this day. Your technology is impressive, but it was built by species that never had to fight for their existence. Ours was forged in the fires of survival. The psychological impact spread faster than the actual battles. Species throughout the galaxy remembered the ancient warnings about humans, beings who refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds, who could turn any environment into a home and any material into a weapon. What had seemed like primitive superstition now felt like prophecy coming true. On distant worlds, alien military academies pulled out 1,000-year-old textbooks about human warfare. The tactics described in those dusty volumes, irregular warfare, adaptive strategy, psychological intimidation, were playing out exactly as the ancient scholars had predicted. High Admiral Koreth realized with growing horror that his forces weren't just fighting an enemy fleet. They were facing a species that had spent 8 centuries studying every aspect of galactic civilization, learning its weaknesses and preparing for revenge. The humans weren't just back. They were better than ever. The massive docking bay of Zephyr Prime Station had never hosted a human vessel. For 800 years, the Galactic Council's capital had welcomed ships from every known species in the galaxy, but humans had been nothing more than ancient legends. Now, as Admiral Tae Kim's flagship Resilience slowly maneuvered through the energy barriers, thousands of alien spectators watched in stunned silence. The ship itself looked like a patchwork of salvaged dreams. Hull plates from dozens of different alien vessels had been welded together with human ingenuity, creating armor that was both beautiful and terrifying. Weapons systems jutted from the surface at odd angles, each one built from technology that the aliens recognized, but couldn't understand how humans had improved so dramatically. Captain Hana Yu stood beside Admiral Tay as they watched the docking procedures through the bridge view screen. She had commanded the Resilience's escort fleet, 12 ships that had emerged from hyperspace around the capital world, like ghosts materializing from humanity's darkest legends. "Are you ready for this?" Hana asked quietly. "Once we step off this ship, there's no going back. The galaxy will know humans are alive." Tay nodded, adjusting the simple uniform that marked him as humanity's representative. Unlike the elaborate ceremonial dress worn by other galactic leaders, his clothes were practical and functional, the clothing of a species that had learned to value substance over appearance. "We've hidden long enough," he replied. "It's time." The galaxy learned the truth. The docking bay filled with representatives from hundreds of different species. Tall crystalline beings from the outer rim stood next to squat armored creatures from the gas giant colonies. Flying species hovered overhead, while aquatic representatives watched from pressurized viewing tanks. All of them had come to see the impossible, living humans walking among them. As the airlock opened, a hush fell over the massive chamber. Admiral Tay stepped forward first, followed by his senior officers. Captain Ari Seo, her uniform decorated with salvaged alien medals that she had earned in secret battles. Captain Jin Park, his weathered face showing the scars of decades spent fighting in the darkness between stars. Lieutenant Yun Choi, carrying a datapad filled with records that would reshape galactic history. The alien crowd parted as the human delegation moved through the corridors toward the council chamber. Whispered conversations followed them in a dozen different languages, all asking the same questions. How were humans still alive? Where had they been hiding? What did they want? The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest enclosed space on the station, designed to hold representatives from 800 different worlds. Today it was completely full. Every seat, every viewing platform, every available space was occupied by aliens who had come to witness this historic moment. Admiral Tay walked to the center of the chamber, where a simple podium waited. Around him, the curved walls rose in tiers, filled with eyes that belonged to species he had studied for decades but never met face to face. The silence was so complete that the hum of the station's life support systems seemed deafeningly loud. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Tay began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "I am Admiral Tay Kim, speaking for the human species that you believed extinct for 8 centuries. A ripple of movement passed through the assembled delegates. Some leaned forward in their seats, others whispered urgently to their advisors. The crystalline collective representative began glowing with patterns that indicated extreme emotional agitation. "We did not come here as conquerors," Tay continued. "We came to reveal a truth that the galaxy needs to understand. Humanity never died. We simply learned to live in the spaces between your worlds, fighting battles you never knew existed." "Captain." Hana Yu activated the holographic projection system at the center of the chamber. The air filled with images that made the alien delegates gasp in shock. Massive creatures with teeth-like starship hulls, the Void Hunters that had been stalking the galaxy's outer rim for millennia. Mechanical swarms that could consume entire solar systems, the machine plague that emerged from dark nebulae every few centuries. "These are the enemies that humanity has been fighting while you prospered in peace," Tay explained. "Every time the Void Hunters approached civilized space, human fleets met them in the emptiness and drove them back. Every machine plague outbreak was contained by humans who sacrificed their lives to protect worlds that didn't even know they existed." The holographic display showed battle after battle, human ships cobbled together from salvaged parts, facing creatures and machines that could destroy entire star systems. The aliens watched in growing amazement as they saw humans adapting alien technology, turning captured weapons against their enemies, and somehow winning fights that should have been impossible. Lieutenant Yun Choi stepped forward with her data. "These records document 3,000 separate engagements over 8 centuries, battles fought in the void between galaxies, in the hearts of dying stars, in dimensions that most species cannot even perceive. Every victory was achieved by humans who the galaxy thought were extinct." Council Speaker Threx Prime, His multiple eyes wide with disbelief, leaned forward in his chair. "Why?" he asked. "Why protect a galaxy that abandoned you?" Admiral Tay smiled sadly. "Because that's what humans do. We don't fight for glory or conquest. We fight because someone has to. We are the species that refuses to surrender, refuses to hide when others are in danger, refuses to let evil triumph simply because the odds are impossible." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and urgent conversations. Alien delegates who had spent their careers dismissing human legends as primitive folklore now realized they had been living under the protection of the galaxy's greatest myth. The legends were never myths, Tay concluded. They were warnings, not of what we would do to you, but what we would do for you. Humanity has returned not as your masters, but as your guardians finally stepping into the light. The greatest secret in galactic history had finally been revealed. Humans were not extinct legends. They were the invisible shield that had protected civilization for 800 years. The end